Hi everybody, this is Jim Piper. Welcome to Just God TV. I am so excited to talk to you about today's lesson about following Jesus. What does it look like to follow Jesus? I want to tell you two stories today. The first one comes out of the Bible, and the second one comes from my ministry experience many years ago. Let me start with my personal experience. I was a young pastor in a growing church. We had grown beyond the capabilities of the building and the property that we had. But I knew that my people were kind of emotionally connected to our property, but we had no room to build on. We had nothing that we could do because we had done funeral services there, we'd done marriages there, weddings there, people had been baptized there, people came to faith in God there. It was a very a meaningful place, but it seemed as though it was time for us to move on. So I remember one particular Sunday evening as I was talking to the church about we need to pray about whether God wants us to move on, to leave this place behind. And you know us human beings, we get attached to stuff. And I remember hearing some of those things from the people. They didn't want to leave. And then there was one lady that I want to tell you about. Her name is Darlene. And Darlene still goes to that church today. And Darlene stood up in the congregation, and she was a matriarch in our church body, and she was well respected. She had buried people there in that church. She had seen people she loved married. She had seen people she loved baptized there. So she understood all of that emotional connection. But she stood up, and tears welled up in her eyes. And she looked at me, and she looked at all of us, and she said something like this. You know, this place does matter to us, but what's more important is that we obey what God told us to do. One of the most important lessons that we need to understand about following Jesus is to obey. Sometimes He'll ask us to do difficult things. Jesus told this story. He said that a wise man built his house on a good foundation, on a rock. And a foolish man built his house on the sand, a place where there wasn't a strong foundation. And as life happens, storms come. And storms come on good houses, and some storms come on houses that are not built on a good foundation. They happen to both houses. The difference is that the house that's built on a strong and good foundation is the house that makes it. It's the house that makes it through the difficulties of life. And the house that is disobedient and doesn't build its house on a good foundation, which is obedience, it falls. So really the choice is up to you and to I. Am I going to build my house on what I want, how I feel, or will I build my house on what God has told me to build? Which, of course, is what we're talking about throughout this whole series. And I'm reminded of one other person in the Old Testament. His name was Joshua, and he looked at all of his people who were bickering and complaining about whether they should do this or that God told them to do. And Joshua looked at his people with love and yet determination, and he said, "Choose for yourself whom you will serve. As far as me and my house, we will serve the Lord." So if you want to follow Jesus, you got to be committed to obey. Until next time, have a great week, and thanks for joining us here at Just God TV.